Hello, my HS100, HS243/HS348 students. This is your Professor Donald Earl Collins. I want to talk to you briefly today about your small group questions writing assignment and, getting through the process of doing the assignment, right? Some of you have had questions, procedural questions, formatting questions, structural questions, content-based questions around this assignment. And the majority of questions I've gotten are basically because you haven't read the instructions for the assignment. I posted the instructions for the assignment almost 2 weeks ago. Talked about it in class week 3, talked about class week 4, and only at the end of week 4 did I start getting questions from students about the assignment in detail. The kinds of questions that you needed to ask during, week 3 in the first half of week 4. Um, Now that's week 5 and your first drafts are due, I suspect that more of you will try to ask me some questions that basically mean holding your hand. Um, I'm not into that. I'm not going to be doing that. Sorry, that's not happening. But I am addressing one question that a student had around how to structure the assignment. What should it look like? Now, I actually do answer this question in the instructions. I talk about how long, that you pose a question and that you spend a paragraph of roughly 200 to 250 words addressing that question. That at the end that your group comes together and puts together an introduction before that comes ahead of those questions of roughly 200 words, uh, introducing and summarizing the kinds of questions you're asking, providing concluding sentences that sort of summarizes it, but provides some analysis as to the kinds of holes that are left, from doing work that looks at the historian's craft and Black migration if you're in the 100 sections, or Civil War and Reconstruction, and maybe some questions about how historians have covered it, the historian's craft within the context of that class, those classes. So here on the left of me, well, the left of the screen anyway, is heading. I actually have this in the PDF that I'll be posting on Moodle underneath the small group questions writing assignment folder. Um, that you need to have a heading. Just like I said in the instructions in the syllabus, that's just like I said in the instructions for this assignment. You need a heading with your name, whatever date it is, course and section. If there's more you want to add to that, fine, but it should be single spaced right at the top of the first page and move on. Then you do your introduction, and I suggest strongly that you have the word introduction, ahead of the introduction so I know it's your introduction. It's only one paragraph, should only be 200 words. Um, I'll give you a range of where you should be aiming. You should be aiming for somewhere between 180 and 250 words, right? So even if you don't exactly hit 200, if it's a little bit more than that, that's fine. It's your first draft. I'm not expecting it to be exactly 200 words in the first draft. You can work on the second draft to try to meet the word count, so to speak, right? And you want a concluding sentence with some analysis at the end of it. That's what you want. That's exactly what you need. And sometimes that might be 2 sentences. It might even be 3. But it should conclude, well, these questions fall under these categories, and this analysis will, help, understand X, Y, and Z kinds of stuff. That's what you're trying to do there, right? And then the questions themselves come after that. Question 1, you literally list the question, whatever the question might be. And then within that, explain afterwards, within the paragraph afterwards, 200, 250 words, explain the importance of this question, why it needs to be asked, what deeper dive does it help you make, how does it help you drill down on a particular topic, um, explaining, through what we've covered in class, what this will allow you to potentially answer. What you are not doing is answering the question. I just want to make this clear. I've said this already, but this is a questions assignment. It's not an answers assignment. You're not trying to answer the question. You're trying to explain the importance of why you're asking that question, the importance of what it would be for you and for others in terms of understanding the context of the Civil War and life during the Civil War better, the causes of the Civil War better, maybe why Reconstruction was doomed to fail from the start, kind of thing, based on what happened during that period of time known as the Civil War. Or if you're talking about Black migration, questions around that, questions around, the process of it, how historians have covered it. What did the historians cover? Why didn't they do it this way? That kind of thing. Those are the kinds of questions I'm expecting, not what if questions, not the kinds of questions that basically, reinforce racial stereotypes or gender differences or, any other kinds of things that discriminate against whole entire classes of people. Those questions are out of bounds. Okay. So, also, if you've noticed, everything after the word introduction, the heading for the subheading introduction, for the paragraph that comes afterward, everything is in double space. Now, there's a space between each question because that's the way I set mine up. It does not literally need to be set up exactly this way, but I do want it double space. I want it highlighted in some way that you've moved on from one question to the next. I want it highlighted in some way that you have an introduction coming after the word introduction. It doesn't have to be in bold. It can be all italics. It can be in red. The print can be in red. But I do want it in 12 point. I would prefer if it's not Times New Roman 12 point because it's so freaking small. But I do want it in 12 point. 12 point Georgia, 12 point Constantia, 12 point New Century School Book, whatever. Okay. And once you do all of that to get to your 6 questions if you're a group of 3 or 7 if you're a group of 4, excuse me, 7, 8 if you're a group of 4, you're done. You're done with your draft. Do a spell check, a grammar check, make sure everything seems kosher, and move on and hand it in. So there's that. I would say that beyond this, we'll talk about citations in class on Thursday. I don't want to belabor the point. Most students are not going to lose points if they don't get their citations exact and perfect. I will talk about simplified Chicago style methodology in class, but if you know APA, you know AP, you know MLA, you know Turabian, something that actually is a standard format for social science and humanities courses, then use it. That's fine with me. If you want to use footnotes, use them. I hate footnotes. I prefer parenthetical citations of footnotes and endnotes, but you can do that. It's fine with me. What you can't do is create your own citation format. You will lose points for that. What you can't do is not cite sources at all, because you are going to be using them as evidence for why you need to ask a certain question. So you'll lose points for that. You will lose points if you do not cite enough. If if your group puts together something that's 6 pages long, you have 2 citations, you will lose points. Unless there's reason for you to only have 2 citations. So those are the reasons you lose points, not because you did them and you didn't do them exactly 100% correct. So don't worry about that, at least for the first draft. And then finally, for my 100 students, I will be posting also Moodle for you this link on page 2 of this document, which is Spotify playlist for Black migration, because we're talking about music this week. It's all about music. Music is a primary source for historical documentation. Music as the language of Black migration, music as the cultural baggage that African Americans took with them and moving across the country in the course of the previous century. And, the meaning of that music for them and for this country and pretty much for the world, right? So, because everything that we listen to now, that means everything in terms of hopping music. Even the music that you think sounds really white, even the music that you think is K-pop and, J-pop and all that other stuff, has its origins pretty much in the music African Americans migrated with 113 years ago. I know, right? Really, that's kind of scary and groovy at the same time, right? Show my age. Anyway, so that's what we're concentrating on for the week, but I want you to have the link. I will also post it in Moodle so that you have it there so you can click on it directly. And that's it. Again, I'm not holding hands regarding this project. I'm not reading first drafts, sentences of first drafts, concluding sentences, introductions, nothing. None of this will be read. You can you can complain, you can gnash your teeth, you can foam at the mouth, but you're adults, right? This is a straightforward assignment, and I just want you to be able to do it and do it well, right? The only thing I would add, and the only thing I've added, is actually gone through this kind of assignment myself, both as a student and as a writer. I actually wrote an article called "Have Black Historians Been Wrong All Along" for Al Jazeera English 6 years ago, back in 2017. I'm not going to go through the whole article with you and talk about why I think historians have been wrong, because first of all, that's not the title I came up with. The title Al Jazeera assigned it because that's what publishing houses and news organizations do. They create their titles. You can have a title, you have a working title, but they may or may not use it. More times than not, they don't use my titles. That's true for most writers. Um, but the questions that I ask, as a historian, this is a historian's question, particularly for 100 students. Have I been doing a disservice to myself, my students, and my readers whenever I present the history of black people in the U.S. as a positive one, the tale of success despite slavery struggle amid Jim Crow and incremental progress at every step? Have I been on a fool's errand, assuming that one glorious day America will embrace me and millions of other African Americans as human equals? And use an example of really Pollyannish, fantastical conclusions among African American historians that essentially say something to the effect we've made a lot of progress, so much so that we can see one day racism just sort of fading away and ending, just going away like that, and that's it. That's me sort of exaggerating it, but bottom line is they kind of have these conclusions in their work. And I'm kind of like, what? Based on what evidence? And so I ask at the end, and if more African Americans become successful in this country, meaning that, the wealth gap goes away, if the education gap, which is negligible to begin with, completely changes, right? If all of a sudden so many people, quote unquote, make it in the United States as African Americans, of its history, with this nation, with its history of racial, economic, and gender discrimination, would this really be the utopia black historians have hoped for? Or would it merely mean that blacks of such prominence would be partakers in a system of American oppression, the beneficiaries of a timeless, formless futurism that would only reflect a toxically racist past, as Williams put it? Is this what black historians like me, Kennedy, and Anderson, have been asking African Americans to believe in and achieve? How wrong have I been? I don't know. That last question is, I don't know. Time will tell. The other parts of this question are basically me saying, let's take deeper dives and look at this, right? You know, having people being part of the black elite, having people doing well financially, all that. What does that prove? Is that really progress? Is that really progress in a country where, you know, you know, as Ta-Nehisi Coates puts in, as I quote him in the next paragraph, black life is cheap, right? That's what it says. Black life is cheap. I mean, does that really mean anything in a country that basically devalues the lives of black people? I don't know. That's why I'm asking these questions, these razor sharp, scalpel sharp kinds of questions. And that's what I'm hoping that you do with your own work at the same time. Simple as that. Um, to be probing, to be skeptical, not cynical, skeptical. There is a difference, right? Cynical is the kind of thing where you basically think that we're all blowhards and we're full of crap. Some of us are. I'm not going to say that none of us are, but some of us are. Most of us probably aren't, right? I would hope most of us probably aren't. So, anyway, that's pretty much it. Not holding hands. I want you to do the work. If you have serious questions of a nature that where things are confusing, let me know. But content wise, you're figuring things out. Okay? Content wise, that is between you and the rest of your group to get right and get ready to do and have done by October the 8th at the end of the day.